Welcome to the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit. I am Marcy Little, your host, and with me today is Christina Lee Pratt. Christina, welcome.
Thank you, Marcy. I'm really honored to be here.
And we are too. So before I get into the amazing work that Christina does, we'll just take a moment, as we do in all of the interviews, to get as present as we can with whatever we got going on in this moment. So I invite you to close your eyes if you like, or keep them open, and just begin to allow yourself to settle. And one way to do that is to feel into your feet and just make that contact with the earth through the feet. And also notice that you have a body, and the sensation of being in a body, sitting, if you're sitting or lying down or wherever you are. And then that might bring you to noticing the natural rise and fall of your chest or your rib cage or your belly with your breath. I invite you, as we talk here today with Christina, to take a break if you need to. If you notice yourself feeling overwhelmed, or suddenly you feel like, gotta get out of here, give yourself a break, hit the pause button, take a walk, shake it out, stand up, pet your dog or your cat, make a cup of tea, and come on back when you're ready. And if your eyes are closed and you're ready, you can just open them back up. Christina and I are right here with you. All right, so Christina Lee Pratt is a healer, author, and teacher of exceptional clarity, humor, and practicality. At Last Mask Center, she is pioneering new shamanic techniques to deal with complex trauma, the healing of our ancestral lines, and initiation of our young into spiritual adulthood. LMC offers healing sessions, online classes, and in-person retreats. Christina is the host of the international live internet radio show, Why Shamanism Now, and the author of the 2-volume set, An Encyclopedia of Shamanism, and a presenter in Shamanic Summits, including those for Shift Network and Sounds True. Our mission is to bring the foundational wisdom of the ancient peoples into our contemporary lives to heal, innovate, and become the medicine needed in our time. As diverse humans together, we can create a world in which all life flourishes, and we hold sacred the responsibility to be sustainable and just in our every action. That felt fantastic to read, Christina.
Thank you.
Yeah, it did. Is there anything more that you'd like to tell our audience about yourself?
Yeah. But one thing, just reading, as I listened to you read the vision, one of the things I wanted to invite people to imagine for just a moment is, if we had that kind of world, if we had that kind of culture that world would require, you would live in a culture in which the very acts we're here to talk about would be illegal, would be not allowed, and that the culture itself would be swift and in sometimes very absolute punishment to those who trespassed or transgressed your boundaries. Mm-hmm. That it is hard for us to, particularly as women, but it's hard for us to imagine what it would be like in a culture for whom our safety and protection was a sacred part of everyday life, was normal.
Amen.
Yeah, right. What would that, can we even just take a moment, what would that even feel like?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so part of understanding shamanism as it's defined by the people who invented the word, right? So not North American workshop shamanism, but really the people from which we've taken that word, because English doesn't even have a word that comes close, right? In English, we can't even agree that there's a healthy altered state other than waking, sleeping, and dreaming, right? And so here, right, yeah, right. Like, how do we heal any of our complex trauma unless we can start to agree that there are very necessary, healthy internal conversations, which frankly, technically, are alternate ways of knowing. And we're not crazy for knowing. We're not crazy for learning that communication. You know, we are not crazy for having a communication with another world that comes in, frankly, to save us because our culture is failing, right? And we say help, and it's there. I mean, that's so this shamanism, as it comes from its origins, is about understanding, you know, I am a little energy body in a great big energy world, and ideally I have a really healthy community as this medium energy body that my little energy body is, you know, evolving within. And that in that culture, there are many, many, many kinds of healers and practitioners and elders and wise people and tricksters and all of these people. One of those kinds of specialists we call a shaman. And what they do is they look at my little energy field and they say, okay, relative to you, sweetheart, and your purpose, you got some missing bits, right? Here, let me go find them and bring them back, right? Or relative to you and your purpose, right? And this is really important that we're contextualized with why we are here, right? Oh, anyway, the other side of shamanism is based on you and your purpose, sweetheart, you got things in there that are not supposed to be there, right? So here, let me help you and move those energies out. And that is the domain of shamanic healing. Things outside of that start to step over into the domain of other kinds of healing. And that's important for us as contemporary people to let that land. On one hand, because it means we can start to educate ourselves and not be appropriating things in a wrong way, because appropriation is theft, period, right? Okay, however we're looking at that, okay. But the other thing is, if we accept that that kind of practitioner is in our field, in our landscape of possible healers, all of a sudden we're like, oh, that me I feel I can't get to sense, right, is available to me. I can ask for help and someone can give me that help without decades of talking about it or dumping their baggage on it. Right, you know, which is like, phew, right? It's a huge relief to realize there's practitioners for whom they don't need to make a big distinction between PTSD and complex PTSD, because they get where the whole thing is coming from and have for 10,000 years. So it's not a new healing form. It's a very old healing form with a lot of history. It's a well-worn path. And for people that are doing that, not some other made-up version of that, but really doing that, there's enormous relief to know that those pockets of abyss, of despair, of I just can't do this. Like, you're right, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to ask this kind of person to help you do that. And they like find those bits that you're missing, bring them back, introduce you to them and say, here, be whole. You know, do what you came here to do, and hallelujah, right? and knowing that that exists in the landscape when you're ready, I think is really important. And that's what I feel we need to sort of understand cognitively about the word shaman in the context of this summit, is that help is out there if you haven't found it yet. And it's real, and you're not crazy for thinking you need that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you make a distinction between out there and in there?
From the perspective of having healthy boundaries and recognizing, while I am one with all things, I'm actually here to do a Christina thing called the uniqueness of this life, right? From that perspective, I do make that distinction because I need to know what is mine to do. Also, what is mine to deal with, right? Versus what is not mine, but also what is not mine to do, right? So there's that personal process of mine, not mine, and sorting that out, which can be very confusing after trauma, period. But after sexual trauma specifically, because there's so many layers of what's going on, because the nature of that activity has its own sacred power. So anyway, confusing, right? What's mine, what's not mine, and in that healing process. So in that sense, yeah, I make that distinction. On the larger perspective, though, the distinction is really important because there's no physical world here. This is an illusion. And I can stay in transformational process until I completely lose myself in the big all that is, which is not the point of incarnating. The point of incarnating is to have this beautiful illusion of being an individual, because the divine needs this unique expression to know itself, right? So this is a huge, important thing, and like it's a whole other own summit, right? But so from that perspective of maintaining my boundaries in terms of my own personal work and my work in the world, so personal and communal, yeah, I get a sense of in and out in that sense. And then there's this big inner world that is my domain, that is the body. And that's where things get so confused, I think, particularly with sexual trauma, is whose world is this?
Yeah, right.
And do I get it? Is it mine or is it not mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it even belong to me?
Mm-hmm.
Do I get to fully inhabit it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. And then also in the beginning, for those of you that are at the beginning of this journey, what happens when you start to finally inhabit it? It's like, do I even want to be here? Right? Because there's a lot in there that's not yours. Right. But it's been internal, yeah. Makes me tired, frankly, thinking about it.
Okay.
But
yeah, and there it is. So we'll just take a breath around that, because if it's making you tired, chances are someone listening might be feeling like that too. So we'll just take a breath. Yeah, I love the audible exhale. Okay. All right. So I love to ask this question to all of my speakers, which is, why did you agree to be part of the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit?
Because two reasons actually that live one in each hand, right? So on one hand, I really believe that in a sex positive life, however you define what that is for you, you should get to have it and enjoy it and share it. And it is that our ability to have a wonderful relationship with our procreative energy is really important to well-being. Okay, so if that's going to happen for everybody, people that have experienced sexual trauma need, I believe, can need help getting there, or at least support in their process of getting there, however we want to think about that, because a lot of it is, of course, our own to do, but you deserve that too. And that is, to me, that is so fundamentally important and gets left out of most people's conversations about spirituality. Right. And it is such an important part of our overall wellness and the why to be here as a human. Y'all could have incarnated as a cedar tree or a hummingbird or something, and you wouldn't have to deal with all this, right? You didn't. You're here as a human, right? So why? Well, part of it is all the good stuff, right? So how do we get there? And there is an enormous amount of suffering that is unnecessary for people who have already suffered if they are in a healing process that denies the reality of soul loss and its companion, which is the soul retrieval, which I was just talking about. That when we make people feel like that's not real as an option in their healing, we prolong their suffering, period. And that's part of my message.
Got it.
You've already suffered. Why make it longer than it needs to be to become whole again?
Yeah.
So that's really why, is to make sure people know it's an option.
Yeah, great. I love that. As you said that, it reminds me of the saying, the worst has already happened. And when we're trapped in the perpetuation of trauma in the present, it doesn't feel that way. Yeah.
Well, and the worst has already happened and you already survived it.
Yes.
Sure. You can already know that.
Yeah.
And how do we build on that knowing?
Exactly. Awesome. All right. So we're going to talk about, and I love the title of what we're going to talk about, deep water, navigating rescue and restoration in the stormy seas of sexual trauma. Great. All right. So let's address the stormy emotional seas to replenish the relationship with the sacred. What do you want to say about that?
Okay, so this is, again, it probably its own summit, but in a nutshell, we in North America and much of the culture of people that are going to summits, right, talk about body, mind, spirit.
Yeah.
And we think we're talking about the whole story without noticing we have utterly, again, left out the emotional body. And that mind is not a good avenue into the emotional body. So it should be body, mind, emotion, and spirit, or heart, right? So this emotional piece is left out at the table, right? It's like, it's not even at the kiddie table. It's not even in the house, right? It's like, it's just left out of this conversation of what it takes to be well. And well, first off, the ability to have one true emotional clearing tool is critical in our process. So that's one piece of it. But the stormy seas piece of it is, I feel like, well, for me, emotions are often presented to me through the metaphor of water, right? So there can be deep water, there can be shallow water, there are rapids, there's, being caught in I don't know if you've ever tried to surf, but been caught in the strike zone of the waves, and you're tumbled and you're upside down, you don't know which way to even go for air, your lungs are bursting, and you're just getting hammered and pushed down again. I almost died that way once, and I only survived because this little sea lion, I think, a little sea lion with a little sea lion face, like swam up to me and was like, "What's your problem?" I'm serious. I kid you not. I am so topsy-turvy, upside down. My lungs are just burning. And he's like, "Follow me." So I go off in the direction I was sure was wrong. And I think, what am I doing? I'm dying, right? And boop, my little head pops up with the little sea lion's like, "There you go. Bye." And off it goes. And I'm like, trying to swim towards shore. But just that feeling of, oh my God, I'm going to die. Well, we get in that with our own emotional storms, where we just can't get out of that strike zone of that repeating pattern, that repeating story. We just think we've got our grounding, we know what's up and what's down, and bam, we get hit again. And so much of that experience is not psychological, or not purely psychological, that it really is emotional. And to add to the storm, right, is the fact that our true emotions in the moment are also happening. Like how I really feel in the moment is happening. How I'm feeling about the fact that I'm repeating in a trauma is happening. So like these layers of emotions are happening, which if we can't learn to sort that out, the sea just gets frothier and the winds more, it's just like a bigger and bigger and bigger storm, right? How do we get out of that, right? Because when people sort of wake up, often there's sort of a waking up into your trauma, you're pretty much in the storm drowning, usually, right? And how do we even get out of that? And so that was, for me, what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this summit is, how do we get out of that storm, which is part water, right? The true sea, right? And part storm, right? It's not necessary. It's just happening. It's just the weather that's happening. The sea, right? Our emotional depths is true, right? We are truly vast, incredibly powerful emotionally. And I mean that with healthy emotions, like our capacity, once we discern for ourselves what our healthy emotional template is, and can move in that, and can keep resourcing ourselves from that place, we just grow ever more centered and powerful. But when we can't find that place, everything's work, everything's exhausting, and everything's confusing. And your mind in that state, in an emotional storm, your mind is your worst ally, because the mind is sitting there saying, all of this is wrong. You're crazy. This is wrong, that you blah, 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 you know, all, you're not doing whatever right, et cetera, right? Your mind is your worst friend in a storm. It's your body that knows how to float, right? It's your body that can go, you know, little, just swimming in that sea. Because actually, for those of you that have ever learned to scuba dive, think about this. The hardest thing is learning to get down and stay down scuba diving, right? We float. We float naturally. Just roll over so your mouth's on the upside so you can breathe. I mean, like, this is natural.
And it's
right?
Our instinct to want to come back up to the surface and get another breath.
Exactly. Yeah. And to swim and to be at sea. Now, when we're swimming in deep, dark water, there's always this fear that there's like sea monsters down there. And I think there are sea monsters. I mean, if we work with this metaphor, there are sea monsters. There are those aspects of our history we're trying to not know. And they do sometimes surface to say, hello, it's time, it's my time. And it feels like a sea monster, because it's like coming up through all these layers of water. So if you think, oh my God, it's so huge, but then it pops its little head up and it's like, oh, I know you, right? You know, it's just your history, right? Just you, it's just one person and the thing that happened. It's not some big monolithic thing. It just looked like that as it was coming up out of the deep, right? And then part of the reason I really like this metaphor also, because really as people, we are like a little boat on this sea. And we do need to find, how am I going to choose to navigate my boat? Are you the captain of your boat? And that's one of the problems, right? After sexual abuse is we often aren't the captain of our own ship. Sometimes we're not even on our ship. We're so out of our body and in the stories, we're not even, you know, and so working with this metaphor is there's a sense, your body knows how to be in your emotional sea and help you interpret it accurately. It's your body and the quality of being in your body, which is a challenging thing, right? You spoke to it just in our centering exercise, right? To be in the body and listen and learn to listen, it gives us that ability to realize, okay, mine, not mine, but also true in the moment reality, story going in my head, right? History, repeat, you know, and it's like, it's in the body. And so the final thing I would say about this is, in the times in my own life that I have been utterly and completely lost at sea, which there've been a few, right? It hasn't been my head that saved me. And quite frankly, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but it hasn't been my spirituality or my shamanism, because you can't trust it when you're really lost at sea. Every single time it's been my body and its ability to float, or rise to the surface and float till I figure out, oh, I'm floating. Oh, okay. Right. Oh, the sky's there. Right. It's still blue. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. And it's always been my body. Right. So if you can't be in your body, or you're in the habit of being out of your body, that deep, keel, that thing that like keeps you even keeled in life, is just gone, right? And what do you do without that? And so that's really what I was thinking about, this sense of how do we find that way? You meet people, right? They sail through life. You're just going like, how are they
do that?
How do they do that? They can even, and the whole thing about being a sailboat, right? It can catch the wind. It can catch some of the bigger issues in life and actually sail. Find a way to cut through that and sail with that. And I think, all right, how do we help people recover that capacity? Because that person isn't special. They've just learned to sail, right? You know, and so how do we get out of drowning in this emotional sea of our life, which is completely reasonable thing to have going on if you've experienced any kind of trauma, and especially sexual trauma, again, because it really confuses boundaries and whose body is whose, right? For number of reasons, right? So That was my sense of this, is that's this stormy sea that I'm talking about. And the truth is, we don't ever get out of the sea. It's our sea, right? But we want to be able to plumb our emotional depths, right? And sail towards that star that guides us in life, and all these wonderful water metaphors, right? We don't want to just be drowning, right? Right? All the time.
Sailing. Oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
And faking it, right? Pretending we're not drowning when really we've just barely got our eyes above water, and every once in a while we get a breath, right? We don't, that's not how to go through life.
Right.
No one deserves that. No one deserves that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And so in that question was replenishing the relationship with the sacred. And if I understand how you've spoken about this, the sacred here is really the body.
Mm-hmm. The body, the heart. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a sense from Taoism, which is really what I was thinking about in this. Okay, so what do I do if the sacred, the body and the heart are just churned up in the turmoil of these stories, and I've learned this and that, but I can't really make it fit together because we do this sort of patchwork spirituality thing these days. And, it's not coming together. And so for me, there was this leap. It's sort of like looking at all of it and going, okay, y'all are crazy in a bad way. Like, you're not helping. None of you are helping me figure this out. And what I found in the challenge, but the simplicity of Taoism, is this ability through practices, through body-based practices, to just build my boat. It's like, okay, I don't like the boats y'all are giving me, and I don't want to be on your boat, and I don't want to be on your boat, and your boat is sinking. I'm sorry, but that's just the Titanic. I am not getting on there, right? But what do? I'm like, treading water. You can only do that so long. So if your boat, if this body you're living in is frankly just leaky, right? It's just, right? What do you do? And so what I found through essentially Qigong, Tai Chi practices, sorry, I got distracted by a second thought before I finish this one, is this ability through ancient practices, in other words, time tested, works for a whole lot of human beings over time, right? That's really important, right? Because we can practice new things because they're shiny, right? Without knowing that they actually take you off center into some funky place. And next thing you know, you're in a cult, right? It's like, right. We want time-tested things, so old, they don't even have a leader anymore, right? And so what this Taoistic practice offers, and I'm thinking about this is your root chakra, right? It allows you to rebuild this container, to build your boat, right? And then, okay, what am I going to put in my boat? Because it's my boat, and I'm only putting in it what and so it's this quality of reshaping your relationship with your body, which is really what this is about, right? Because your body's fine. In terms of it's getting the job done, right? So it's about reshaping your relationship with your body by giving it this deep replenishing energy that comes through Qigong and these kinds of body-based practices, right? And so the important thing about this restorative practice is you're not putting out more energy than you're taking in. That's the tricky thing. Like before the pandemic, I swam every day. I love swimming, back to the water metaphor, but it's aerobic. It actually it's healthy for my body, but it's not doing what we're talking about. It's not restoring the sacred structure and relationship with my body. And so what the Qigong practices do is they really help restore the energy that restores the sacred structure of the body. And then we can hold the story, and I don't mean this in a dismissive way, but the story of the trauma. So what needs now medicine, what needs process or transformation, it's like the body becomes a crucible, and I'm jumping to chemistry, sorry, becomes a crucible that can hold the transformation that needs to happen. And when it's all leaky or reactive, it can't hold the transformation that needs to happen to heal. And so if we're going to contain our healing in our body, we have to tend it as container. And so it's not personal, I guess. I mean, it's profoundly personal, but it's not caught up in the drama of the personal. And so that was my sense of this, is knowing there are practices out there that can help us restore us as our body as container and as reliable feedback. Because when we're reactive, our feedback's not reliable, right? Because I'm in the moment, I'm safe, but my story is telling me I'm not. Right. So that feedback is problematic. And now my body's getting an adrenaline response. And now I'm in my cortisol reaction. I'm panicking. And now I'm yelling at this poor person who has nothing to do with it. Right. And now I'm in it again.
Yeah.
So it's not reliable information. I mean, it's information, right? But it's not reliable because in reality, I'm here having a lovely conversation with you and I'm safe. So how do we help the body that is both holding the story also become this sacred container in which that story can transform and become your medicine ultimately? Yeah. Like I'm looking at your book going, and that's Marcy's medicine right there. There's a piece of it right there in that book, right? You transform that experience into medicine right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's in the title, Naked, My Body Story. It's right there. Yeah. And for me, you know, it's been both African dance, but even more so yoga. You know, the deep practice of yoga, which has.
Well, you just brought up an important thing, though, is that dynamic between that which cultivates the sacred, like the yoga, the slow restoring the body, but also the dance, because any kind of dance that allows expression, it allows the transformation piece to happen through the body without having to make sense to the mind. Because again, this whole trying to make it make sense to the mind is a real limitation. I mean, it's nice every once in a while when clarity lands and you go, oh, great, point of clarity. My brain is happy now. But if we try to make our whole healing process make sense to our mind, it's very limiting. And there's so much wisdom of the body that moves out through the process of movement as transformation, as expression, as life, that there's an alchemy in allowing yourself that with, right, the container piece and the whole cultivating that quiet relationship. What comes through the quiet, through the dark, through the contemplative, but still body-based practice versus meditation alone, which can often be totally out of the body. Right, by design sometimes, right? I mean, that's valuable too, but in what we're talking about, it's about those practices that are resourcing, nourishing, replenishing that sacred container of the body that has been violated, right? And so how do I repair that so that it can then be the crucible I need it to be for my own transformation?
Right, that alchemical process to take place. Yeah, in a safe way. I love it. So you've talked about building a new boat. We're going to talk a little bit about allowing rescue or soul retrieval, and maybe you feel like you've already talked about that. Is there anything more you want to add?
I did a little bit backwards, didn't I?
Fantastic.
It was all a very logical flow, and then it went backwards. Yes. Okay. There can be stress created by our own trying to discern, do I just need to do this more, right? Or harder or better or pray better, like that whole sense of I have to do my own healing. I just am not doing it right or something. And what I'd like people to understand is, yeah, there's a whole lot of our own healing we do have to do because we made the old choice. And we have to be able to show up as our current self and help that old self unmake that choice and make our new choice, right? So that piece no one can do for you. Absolutely. And that is the work really of our own inner process, whatever is inspiring it. Okay. With that said, at the same time, part of it is understanding, this is a really important part of the healing wisdom of the body, is knowing when I need to ask for help. Really. And then, okay, I need to ask for help with this. This isn't me just needing to do it again or harder or more or better or anything. It's like, I need help. And, the thing is, when it comes to the physical body, we kind of know this. We know when we get sick enough, we need to ask somebody to bring us chicken soup or whatever. I mean, like when it's the physical body, we know my leg is broken. Walking on it more isn't going to help, right? But when it comes to our heart, when it comes to our mind and our spirit, we don't seem to know where that is, that asking for help line. And so part of what I want to say is there's probably many different kinds of help you'll need to ask for. And this particular, I thought, oh, let me give that list. But Shamanic healing, one of the ways in your process, no matter what your process is, the characteristics of you facing the hole left in your energy body by your own soul loss. So let me talk about what soul loss is. Soul loss happens when our system is in shock. That's the old-fashioned definition for it, shock. Okay, however, probably for us, it's more accurate to say overwhelm. Something is going on that is overwhelming our system and our ability in the moment to set it right. Either because we are a child, because we are overpowered, because we don't have the words yet, because no one's listening to the words we're using. Whatever is going on, it is overwhelming us in the moment, trying to process everything. So grief is an example of this, right? I mean, and the blessing in grief is that it doesn't make you do it all at once. It ebbs and flows. Otherwise, it would just kill us on the spot, right? It's overwhelming experience. Okay. But there's a lot of life to grieve after trauma. There's things we miss because this happened and that didn't, right? And so there's little moments of grief as well. So it's a good example of how we can be overwhelmed or not, right? Okay, anyway, so overwhelm happens often when in this moment, I can't sort this out in a way that is in alignment with my soul and what is right and true for me. And so to cope, one of the things that happens is a part of ourself oozes out to take the thing we're being overwhelmed by and move it off so we're not so sensitive to it. So what's left can deal with the moment, whatever that means. Now, some people go, oh, she's talking about dissociation. No, dissociation is real. I'm not saying dissociation isn't real, but dissociation means that part of me that oozed off is still in the boundaries of my sphere of influence. Back to the whole inner and outer, right? Soul loss is when the issue is so frightening or so sudden, so extreme that the part that oozes off leaves our sphere of influence. So it goes out into who knows where, right? Okay, and what happens with that is it doesn't move forward in time with us anymore, right? Because all that moves forward in time with me is my sphere of influence. So whatever's in here, as messed up as it may be, right, is still moving forward in time with me. So when I have my 17th birthday, it all turns 17, right? A soul part, if it left when I was 5, it's 5. Whether I'm 17 or 35 or 55, by the time it comes back, it's still 5. And it still sees things from that perspective. So my point, if that's happening, right, which is a little bit different than a dissociated energy, which can kind of come back and forth and isn't always got an attached age to it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, my point is, because it's outside of our sphere of influence, we can't get it back ourselves because we're still unclear in our perspective, because we're still kept in this perpetual state of unresolved trauma, because it's out there. The part that needs to finish the story is out there, right? So that's soul loss. And what it does for the person who stayed here and coped and carried on is it leaves a hole in our energy, is the most effective metaphor to use for it, which we then continue to hemorrhage energy out of. And because we're hemorrhaging energy out of it, right, our being that is very wise says, you need to fix that. You're hemorrhaging, right? So it keeps bringing back experiences to remind us of the original trauma. Sound familiar? right? Like, what a mess, right? So the problem, and then some of us go, okay, that's not working, but we start doing behaviors to try to fill the hole or block the hole, which can be coping addictions, problematic behaviors, and even just our inability to commit to healthy things. Right. So this all can be rooted back to these holes, potentially. I'm not saying they all always do, but this is the thing. Okay. So what does it feel like when I, as a person dedicated to my healing process, stumble upon one of those holes? It's a very, very specific feeling. One, hopelessness. I mean, not all of these things don't have to be present, but these are the kinds of things we feel. So one of them is hopelessness. You're not hopeless, right? As long as you have a heart that is beating, you are always looking towards potential. So if you are feeling hopeless, you're probably tapping into some soul loss, because our ability to get that part back is a little hopeless, right? So it's kind of a real feeling. But then you've got someone out here going, oh no, Christina, don't feel hopeless. You can do this. I'm like, no, I can't. And now I'm confused because my support system is saying, see the potential. And this really honest part of myself that feels sort of like my body is saying, no, fix this, track the hopelessness. So it's confusing. We're back to the emotional C, right? Okay. So anyway, hopelessness. Another thing is when we really move towards it through a powerful healing process, we're ready to take that next step. And it's not there. And the despair that comes from that is definitely soul loss. And that also means we're so ready for that energy to come back because we keep wanting to take that step, but there's no land there to step on. The other thing is a beautiful process, and I plant that seed for growth, then it doesn't grow. All right, then, so I plant that seed for growth again, doesn't grow. Right? Because the earth, the me it needs to be planted in isn't here. So I'm literally planting a seed in a hole, right? So these are all the kinds of ways we feel with soul loss, and the telltale addictions and repetition of patterns, chronic things that don't change no matter how effectively we do our work. Right? These are all potentially signs of soul loss. So then the job of the practitioner is to say, Marcy, wait here, right? Dun, 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 dun. Right? Using shamanic skills, right? We go outside of space and time because of the shamanic journey technique, right? And we go find the soul parts. They're usually not, they have no idea anything has changed. They're doing what they were sent to do, which is to stay out here and save the whole, right? They're little sacrificial, I'm going to save the whole. I'm a little warrior. I'm going to go off here in this horrible situation. But it's not always that. Sometimes what we lose is the part of ourselves that goes, I'm not doing this. I'm leaving. Or here, you take this really special gift I have and go keep it safe. Like these are all these strategies we're using when we create soul loss. And so when we do all this amazing healing work and we're going, why don't I know what my passion is? I feel great. I've done the work, man. I am ready to go. What am I supposed to do? Well, it's because you were smart and you sent that little part of you out there who knows exactly what you're here to do. Keep that safe, right? Because you were being like repeatedly abused and you were afraid that person was going to get to your treasure. It is a really common thing. So there's like all this work, right? And you're ready. But we don't know. So these are all signs in different stages of the process that a part of ourself is missing that has this next thing that we need. So the practitioner's job is to go find them, and their task, because really good therapists can find them, right? But therapy is not the right modality to bring them back, right? So, but it doesn't mean you can't connect, right? In really, really good work. It's really intuitive work, okay? But the issue is someone needs to go there and go, so let's talk about this. And some sort of negotiation to convince them now is the time to return and then to guide them back.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the other thing is they're lost. They're outside of time. And so how do you get them back in the body they belong in? And then the other thing is just some of them are like, no, I'm not coming back. There's no way I'm going back to that. And you have to like, no, that's not happening anymore. So the other thing the practitioner is doing is really advocating for the person. This is the work they've done. This is where they are. This is they're ready to care for, like it's different now. Right? Okay. So anyway, This is the next thing that's different than something like mediumship, for example, is in the particular nature of a shamanic journey. Now I'm me in the journey. I get to put my little energy hands out here and grab that little soul part and pull them into my heart so I can transport them from wherever they might be to us, back to our moment in time of our session, and then put them back in your body. So the next gesture is to put them back in your body where they belong, and then to support you if you need it in your integration with that part, because it's, you know, still 5 or it's still 17 or still, you know, whatever age it was when it left. And so there's an aspect of, if this is the soul part, it's like it hasn't gone through the process you've gone through. So like growing up Marcy, right, has to like, by the way, let me catch you up here. And so there's an integration process, which is really kind of beautiful, actually, and a way that we become whole. So it's not like I'm a piece of pottery with a broken piece and Christina goes to find the piece and sticks the piece back. That's what I can do. But what you do is that integration process that connects the edges again and makes the whole thing contiguous. And then we're back to that sacred container being reinforced. So that's my little animation of soul loss and soul retrieval.
Thank you for that. That's really, really wonderful. And it reminds me of the Japanese vase.
Mm-hmm.
Has all of, and we're stronger in the places that have been re-glued, reintegrated. Those bonds become the stronger places.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
wonderful. So Christina, we are coming to the end of our time, and first of all, just enormous gratitude for everything you've brought to this interview, and it's been such a pleasure to go on this shamanic exploration with you. I mean, not that we went into the shamanic world, but exploring the, you know, the terrain. Really lovely. And Christina Lee Pratt, my final moment of gratitude to you, both for who you are, for the work that you do, the way that you're making this plane that we have all agreed to be manifested in a better place, and for being part of this summit. Thank you.
It's an honor, truly, Marcy. Thank you.